Hey, gang, we're here with another episode of the Power of Nine podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert. Today's guest is an award-winning entrepreneur, author, and speaker that inspires and motivates people to find happiness in their lives. I'm super excited to share with you my friend, Nicole Middendorf. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I got to tell you, I have healthy butterflies today because you're a pro at this stuff. Like, you're
No.
you're on TV, we'll get into some of this stuff, but TV, radio, like this is I'm making myself kind of feel big time here.
It just means I'm old.
Oh, come on now. No,
I'm
you're
old
good.
and wise now.
There we go. I like that. Yeah, me too. I got gray in my beard. Yeah, that's what that means. Okay, before we get started on all the stuff about you, which I'm excited to get into, let's address your pronouns so I know how to address you throughout our conversation.
She, her.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so where did you grow up? You grew up in the Twin Cities here, right?
Yeah, I grew up. So my office building that I bought 3 years ago is in Minnetonka. And I grew up about 3 miles from here.
Right. So you could ride your bike there back in the day. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about your upbringing. So what was your family dynamic like, mom, dad, siblings, anything like that kind of stuff? And then just the general tone of what it was like to grow up in your household.
Yeah. So I'm an only child. So some people would say I was spoiled, but my dad said that I was well loved. And I was the first generation to go to college, and my parents were super strict, like super, super strict. And I just think about it, like there's so many experiences now being a parent that I go back to. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm letting my child do X, Y, and Z. Or like last night, my daughter's out and she's driving the golf cart. I'm like, there's no way my parents would have ever let me drive a golf cart when I was a kid. Right. And so just super structured, super strict. I was a figure skater. So I was at the ice arena at 5 a.m. Well, really technically 4:30 every morning skating before school. And so I would skate, I would go to school, I'd then come back from school, go back to skating, go home to have like a traditional dinner, very structured, go back to skating or work out with my trainer or have a health class or whatever. So it's how my life is today. Like there's always something going on. It's always busy and there's lots of structure to it. But I've learned over the years to, like, my word this year of 2022 is fun. And so I've learned to embrace the things that I've learned as a kid growing up with all of that structure and really super strict parents, and how to blend that with things that actually fit me and my lifestyle and suit me.
Do you find that, so my wife is an only child, and one of the things I find about her is like, she's fiercely independent, right? Like she's driven and nobody's going to tell her anything and if they do try and defy that, like she's going to prove 10 times over why they're wrong. Do you have that in you? I feel like
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And part of it, like my mom would sit down and pay the bills and I'd put on the stamps, and she would just drilled into me just constantly, like, don't ever expect anything from anyone. And Nicole, if you want to be president of the United States, you can do it, but like, you've got to do it. And if you want to go climb that mountain, you can do it, but you've got to do that. Like, don't rely on anyone. So yes, I'm extremely independent, and I'm raising a daughter that is extremely independent as well.
Yeah. Well, it goes full circle, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about the figure skating thing, because I think I remember at one point when we were talking, or when you introduced yourself at your Coalition 9 session or something, you were good, and like that was a huge part of your upbringing, was just the rigor of figure skating. And I have to imagine that helped like kind of inform drive, right? Like just it created some structure that was like next level.
Yep. And that's where, like, people say, like, will ask me like, well, how'd you become so successful? And for me, it's one, I'm a Capricorn. I'm an only child. I was a figure skater, and one of my coaches had her master's in psychology. So I just at a young age was thrown into this world of lots of goal setting and lots of structure and lots of hours, and someone that worked with me constantly with the power of my mind. And so just that, I was your typical lack of confidence kid and girl. But when it came to skating, I learned how to manipulate my thoughts and just one example, like I coached figure skating for years. And one of the things that I did when I started coaching was kids would come over to me and they would say, I can't do this. And my response to them was like, I want you to bring a dictionary because back then we didn't really have the internet like we do today. Like, next coaching, next time I'm with you, your next lesson, I want you to bring a dictionary. Go look it up. Like can't is not in the dictionary. I don't want you to use that word. And anytime if you do use that word, you owe me $1. Yeah. So I would collect this $1. They wouldn't know it, but I would turn around and give the $1 back to their parents. But what happened is eventually these students stopped coming over to me saying, I can't do it. They would just go do that jump or they would go do that spin and eventually like taking off the mental block. And it was little tricks like that dramatically helped me as a figure skater, let alone have just helped me dramatically in my life, in personal things, as well as in business.
Yeah, I don't doubt you probably can use a lot of those same principles in coaching and teaching that you did in figure skating to business, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel, I joke many days, like, I feel like I'm a therapist, not a wealth advisor, but
Right.
really it's coaching. I'm coaching people and helping people find happiness and coaching people with their money.
Yeah. I'm going to digress just for a second. Do you remember I think we're kind of about the same age. Do you remember the movie Cutting Edge?
Yes.
I loved that movie. I wasn't even into hockey or figure skating, but I thought that movie was amazing. Did you?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. The Cutting Edge was like my world, I mean, it's so funny. Tanya Harding, I think it was the movie, I think it was just called Tanya that came out.
Oh yeah.
I watched that a couple of years ago and they showed her in Minneapolis at one of the competitions. And I was like, oh my God, like I was there. Like,
crazy.
Yeah, that was my era. That was the whole world, my whole world.
How long did you, I guess we'll call it competitive skating. How long did you skate competitively?
I skated up until high school. That's pretty much when everything ended because then I went off to college. And that was the thing my parents really drilled into me. Like, they're like, we don't want you to go out to Colorado. Because I did have some friends. I went out to Colorado and trained and would go for the Olympics. And they're like, we don't want you to do that. We want you to have a normal, quote unquote, normal life. Right. And they're like, we want you to go to college. And part of it, my mom was a beautician. My dad was an electrician. Neither of them went to college. And they really wanted me to have a better life than they did. And so that's where I ended up going up to St. Cloud State and I coached up there and continued coaching. And when I started at Morgan Stanley, I had to give up selling Mary Kay Cosmetics and I had to give up coaching figure skating. And so I still miss it to this day. My daughter now loves figure skating and she's actually trying out tomorrow morning for the team that I skated on in synchronized skating. So it's super cool now, but yeah, it was a huge part of my life. And now it's starting to come back through my daughter a little bit.
Yeah. What do you think, what will be a good lesson that you learned through that process in skating and that you can tell your daughter to make sure that she has a different experience than maybe you did?
To enjoy the moment, because I so much of it is so focused on like getting first place and like being the best. And I remember I had 104 temperature. We had gone up to Duluth for the weekend and I was just super sick, like super, super sick. And I've always been, because figure skating taught me this, like, no matter what's happening, you've got a broken arm, it doesn't matter. Like you finish your competition, like you do it. And that's how I was raised so much. And the pandemic really changed that for me because prior to that, I was like, oh, I'm sick. Like, I mean, the things that I did when I was pregnant, I remember like I was basically going into labor and giving a presentation. I look back to, and I don't want my daughter to have that so much to the extreme of, I have bins of medals and awards and all of these things. But I skated when I had 104 temperature up in Duluth, and I got first place. But that was like the focus. Like, I don't want my kid with 104 temperature, like skating, like it's not worth it. I would rather have rather have her think of the memories and those experiences, enjoy the ride, rather than always thinking about the prize or what's the end goal.
Yeah. So what did you do what'd you go to college for?
International business and marketing.
Wow. And
not financial services.
Yeah, right. So good. And so all right. So this is a good segue into that. So what was your first, let's call it like your real job or your career job. What was your first real job out of college?
So I was pretty much offered my dream job. My language was German, even though I'm not German. Middendorf is my ex-husband's name, but German was the only language that was offered when I grew up at my school. But I couldn't take the dream job because it was out of state. It was actually 50% travel to Germany. But I started working at C.H. Robinson as a food broker, buying and selling potatoes and onions and starting to transport them internationally to Mexico and Canada.
Wow.
So I was definitely, and that wasn't my dream. Like my dream was to get involved in the international world. And I wanted to go to law school. Like I wanted to be like Madeleine Albright. I fell in love with the United Nations when I had studied over in Germany, and I wanted to make change. I wanted to make an impact.
How come you didn't go that path?
Well, I got married right out of college
and
married someone that dreamt of being a stockbroker his whole life. And he was like, this is what you're going to do.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, but that's not what I want to do. That's not my team. That's not what I've been envisioning forever. And he's like, no, like, this is what you're going to do. And so that's how I ended up in this career of financial services. And I find it just ironic. Like, I really believe like things happen for a reason. And I believe out of the worst things in life come sometimes the best. And so I would have never, like, growing up, because that's my big challenge now, is I am in a male dominated industry. Yeah. And I just came back from a big conference and I walked in to use the restroom and there was a huge long line for the men's restroom. And I walked like through it and I'm like, excuse me. And I was like, there's no line for the women. And I was laughing about it. And as I walked into the restroom, I'm like, why am I laughing? This is horrible. Mm-hmm. So I actually turned around and I took a picture of the men and the women's restroom as in the lines. And I'm like, I need to write about this for LinkedIn because it's not a good thing. And I'm in such a male dominated industry. And that's like my challenge now is I want to bring more women. Like I need these women advisors in my office. And I really struggle with finding them. And so financial services was not a career that I ever thought of, but it's been perfect. Like it's been completely perfect for me. And so I got through it. I started at Morgan Stanley and in 2003, so in January, it'll be 20 years and was there for a little bit and then left and went independent and started my own business. It was called Strategic Financial. I was married at the time. We grew it. I worked with my now ex-husband. We had 12 financial advisors. And August of 2010 was the first time that the 911 phone call went through. And my now ex-husband, a warrant was put out for his arrest for domestic violence. And I was thrown into this world that I just never knew about and never really realized that. I just thought, oh, here's someone that's controlling, wanting me to do this career. I didn't really look at it like, oh my gosh, like I'm a victim. And I don't like to use the word victim, but I'm now a survivor of domestic violence. And so as part of our divorce, I had to give him the company name, the website, the phone number, the 12 financial advisors. And in 2012, I virtually started all over. And my daughter was 6 months old and my son was 2. And I'm like, oh my God, like, how did I end up here? And by then I did a radio show for 5 years on FM 107. I had written a couple of books. And so I was one of those people that you saw was like, I was happy and always bubbly. And like from the outside, oh my gosh, she's on radio, TV, she's got this business that's growing. She lives on Lake Minnetonka, the boat, like the multiple cars, all this stuff. From the outside, my life looked quote unquote perfect, but I was miserable. I mean, I had these 2 kids under the age of 2, and I'm like, I'm in a career that I never picked. Like I didn't go to law school. Like I hate where I live. Like I loved inspiring other people. I loved doing the radio and I love that, but I felt trapped really. And so I'm like, what do I do? Like, how do I get out of this? So I rewrote my bucket list, and I had learned, because I was a certified divorce financial analyst, I still am, but I had learned that the average divorce takes about a year. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to write down 12 things, and I'm going to do one thing a month for a year on my bucket list. And so I hopped on a plane and flew to Vegas because I had to do my first item, which was to drive a race car, because I had met with my best friend from college. I was like, hey, this is the deal. Like, I need kind of a distraction. I need a way to like get me out of this like yucky space in life and like help figure this out. And so I'm going to write down, I'm going to do these 12 things. I want to drive a race car. Let's go up to northern Minnesota, up to Brainerd, and let's drive a race car. He's like, Nick, anything you do, you don't just put 100% into it. You put 180. Like, you need to go to a real speedway, like go to Vegas. And so I'm like, okay, come with me. We're going this weekend. He's like, I'm not going. So I went by myself. My parents moved into my house, took care of the kids. And you know how when you're on a plane and someone has to talk to you the whole time? I had that gentleman, and for some, like looking back now, I'm like, I do not know how I did this. For some reason, I felt compelled to stay in the Minnetonka Beach Women's Book Club. So I'm reading Steve Jobs's book. I'm going through a divorce. I have 2 kids under the age of 2. My ex-husband was basically in jail. I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I doing reading Steve Jobs's book on this plane? But again, it comes back to all those years of figure skating of like, it doesn't matter. Like, you've committed, like you have to follow this through. You're in this book club. Like, you've got to read this book no matter what else is going on in your life. And I've really learned to embrace, give yourself grace as a phrase. But I, at the time, was reading Steve Jobs's book and had this gentleman that wouldn't stop talking to me. And eventually he couldn't understand why I was going to Vegas. And he's like, you're not going to gamble? I'm like, I'm a financial advisor. I gamble with people's money every single day. And he's like, well, I don't get it. I'm like, I rewrote my bucket list, and I'm doing one thing a month for a year, and I'm going to Vegas to drive a race car. He finally then got silent. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. He's like, you're so young. Is it cancer? And I then was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't go around telling people that I'm doing one thing a month on my bucket list because they think you're dying. And so I came up with the term Live It List. I then continued to do one thing a month. And then I learned that 1 in 3 Americans is happy. And then I also learned that if you spend more money on experiences, you're going to be happier than if you spend money on things. And so I kind of had this aha moment. And then I started my own foundation. I started granting Live It List experiences for people. And now it like encompasses my life. Like, that's what I speak on. It's all about like, how do you find happiness? All of our clients get a financial plan. And in that financial plan, yes, we help people get to retirement, the kids to college, but it's like, what's on your list? What's on your Live It list? Like, what really matters? And so I feel like my life has kind of come full circle. Yes, I didn't go to law school. I'm not Madeleine Albright. I'm not Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but I feel very passionate about helping inspire people be happy in life, let alone get more women in this financial services industry.
Hey, let's take a quick break and hear about a few of our supporters. The topic of talent is hot in organizations of any size, and I would argue none more than small to mid-sized businesses. That's why it's crucial to have a partner to help you navigate all the HR idiosyncrasies so you can focus on working on your business and not in it. Insperity is a full-service HR partner with a high-touch, high-tech platform helping owners work through challenges like employee retention, company culture, and benefits, just to name a few. Do yourself a favor and explore all they have to offer at Insperity.com. Insperity, HR that makes a difference. If you're anything like me, you know enough to be dangerous when it comes to finance, yet need some help when things get complicated. All-in-One Accounting provides the right financial expertise and leadership to align with your stage of growth. From outsourced accounting and bookkeeping to strategic financial planning, the team of accounting rockstars at All-in-One Accounting are passionate about positively impacting the lives of their clients. Check them out at allinoneaccounting.com. All-in-One Accounting, taking our clients from financial chaos to business clarity and beyond. United Healthcare believes there's no limit to what care can do. UHC is continually focused on building a modern, high-performing health system via improved access, affordability, outcomes, and experiences. With a network of over 1.3 million care professionals and 6,500 hospitals and care facilities, United Healthcare is dedicated to connecting you to better health by offering quality benefits designed for affordability. Go to uhc.com for healthcare plans, resources, and more information. United Healthcare, helping people live healthier lives. If you're a business owner wanting to save money on your overall real estate costs, I want you to give Carlson Partners a call. The team will help minimize your risk exposure and help you leverage the market to see maximized benefits to your next lease, purchase, or disposition. They've advocated and negotiated for hundreds of companies and saved millions of dollars in real estate expenses. With over 75 years of experience representing business owners, let them help you save time and money on your next real estate negotiation. Visit carlsonpartnersllc.com to learn more. And back to the show.
I literally have like 100 questions that I want to ask you based on what you just shared. All right. So, all right, I'm going to start out. So when was the point, as you look back from when you started to experience your domestic violence, and I'm guessing that's probably a balance of both mental and physical violence, to when you had to make the call, what was that period of time?
It was 11 plus years. It was a very long period of time. And part of it was because of how I was raised with figure skating, but also I went to private Catholic school. You know, I was raised so much like I have a difficulty with people that when they say they're going to do something and they don't do it, because like, if I say I'm going to do something, like I go do it. And that's how I was raised. And so I was raised like I felt like I could like not fix everything in life, but I'm like, okay, like if I have a problem, I can fix it. Like my mom told me, like, if you want to do something, go make it happen. I'm like, okay, I got to be able to fix this. Like there's a way, you know, everything. I love that book. I forget her name. I think it's Maria Falero, but everything's figure outable. Like, I love that. Like everything is figure outable. And for some reason I kept thinking that I could figure this out.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. And so what happened is when the physical abuse and the emotional, but really when the physical abuse happened to the kids, that's where I was like, the line has been drawn and I need to do something.
Yeah. Did you tap into what kind of resources did you tap into to gain that confidence to do that? And, you know, so kind of what I'm alluding to is like, I got to believe that people that are listening to this either have someone in their lives or they themselves might be dealing with this. So one, I know that you're an advocate for this. So I want to make sure that's why we're talking about it a little bit today, but then also too, it's a huge part of your story. And so in that story, you probably did utilize resources. What were some of those things that you did to help get you to that point?
Yeah, well, and that's part of the reason I started my foundation, because the police, when they finally did come to the house that night, you know, they handed me a card and they're like, here, you know, here's Sojourner. I'm like, yes, I'm very familiar. I've been volunteering for years. And that's part of it. Like I would teach divorce dollars and cents, and I would go to some of these support groups and like talk about money for these women. And I was like, now it finally clicked. I was like, oh my God, like the wheel of domestic violence that I would hear and learn from going to the DAP and Cornerstone and the Domestic Abuse Project, all these different places. I was like, that's me. Like that, this is why I felt so compelled to volunteer there and teach these classes. And so it was reaching out to Sojourner and these various different organizations. But that was one of the things when the police came and handed me the card and they're like, here, call Sojourner. When you're in a domestic violence situation, even though like I was on radio and TV, I was so isolated. Like when I called my best friend and was like, hey, you know, I rewrote my bucket list, I probably hadn't seen him in like a year and a half, 2 years, because my ex-husband and I worked together. So he'd control my calendar. He would see that I would have lunch with Billy on my schedule, and he'd make up some reason or excuse. And really I was isolated. And so I made so many mistakes because I was so isolated. I did reach out to friends, like, friends that were police officers, clients, and they were super helpful. But I was also very scared. I don't know if scared is the right word, but embarrassed to even reach out and say something. And so my foundation, my goal behind it, and we're starting this in a small scale, my goal behind it is that when the police come, that you're not just handed a card and like, good luck. What my foundation does is we have women, we had 2 last year, we have 2 this year, that we meet and we just surround them for a whole year. And so I provide financial advice. We pull an attorney, we pull in a coach, a therapist, a CPA, and all this has been virtual because of the pandemic. And then at the end of the year, I take them to the Mall of America, and we have a stylist that goes with us, and I have my checkbook, and we take them shopping and get them a new wardrobe. We take them to the salon and they get a new hairstyle. And so the whole thing is we are surrounding these people for a whole year, because I have super supportive parents. I have super supportive friends, but I was so embarrassed. I didn't want to tell anyone. And I was really embarrassed to even share my story. And I finally I was on stage. It was a women's conference, and I don't remember what year it was, but I was part of this panel. And it was the first time ever that I publicly like opened up to sharing. And I didn't come out and say like, I'm a survivor of domestic violence, but I shared a few pieces where the women in the audience like knew, like they had that, if they had been in that situation, like they had that connection. And I got off the stage and the line was like out the door. And these women were like, thank you so much. Like, oh my gosh, like that you got out. Like, okay, if you can get out, like I can get out. And I had this aha moment of like, I have got to be vulnerable, like using my story and sharing my story. And I have like chills as I'm talking about this, like that is empowering for other people, let alone that it was really being truly authentic and even more empowering than for myself and helpful in my own therapy. Like the more I tell the story and the more I share and the more I deal with it, the more I get over it, because I don't want to say you don't ever get over it. Like I was in my house the other night and there was a loud noise and I like physically jumped. Not that the average person wouldn't do that, but where my mind goes and where my thoughts go is not where the average person's mind and thoughts go. And you can't ever get away from that. That'll affect you for the rest of your life. And you don't want to mask it, but you want to own it. Like with anything bad that happens to you in your life, own it. And okay, what can I do? And how can I figure this out? And how can I help people with it?
Yeah. Well, I'll put a link to your foundation in our show notes so people can click on that and then they have access to that. So I want to shift gears just a little bit. I'm going to go backwards just a little bit in your career. So you alluded to working with Mary Kay. And I remember a really great story of how you got kind of truly got into financial planning. And it's kind of, there's a bridge between Mary Kay and I think Morgan Stanley, right? So it's such a good story. Please tell me that story. That's so good. I can't wait for our listeners to hear this.
Yeah. So a friend of mine in high school was like, she started selling Mary Kay and she's like, you got to do this with me. You got to do this with me. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm figure skating, like I'm going off to college but my figure skating career was kind of like coming to an end because I wasn't, headed off to the Olympics or anything.
Right.
And I was just going to coach. And so I was like, okay, so I convinced my mom that I could do this and like took a loan from my mom to get involved in Mary Kay. But it was the best experience ever. Like at a young age to have mentors and have like structure and learn about taxes and a business and products and inventory and all of that stuff. It was just completely awesome. And it was all about and I think part of it is like, I've always been a writer and I've always just been super creative. And it was always like, okay, how can I take a different slant on this? And I was very driven. Like I wanted that pink Cadillac car. And so I was working at C.H. Robinson. I was coaching figure skating and I was selling Mary Kay. And my husband at the time started working at Morgan Stanley. And I started selling makeup to the men in the Morgan Stanley office. And the branch manager like pulled me aside. He's like, hey, you should be a financial advisor. I'm like, I know that's what my husband's telling me, but that's not happening. Like, I'm going to law school. He's like, if you can sell makeup to men, he's like, first off, like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm selling it to them for their wives. Like, that's the whole thing, is like to make things like, it's all about how can you help people and how can you make things easier and how can you help people be happy? And so I was doing that in Mary Kay, and I'm now doing that in financial services.
Yeah, I love it. It's just such a good story that on how that all kind of came to be. So what is, when you broke out on your own, you were, I think entrepreneurship and leadership is super lonely, right? Like, and you had already dealt with a series of challenges that are unspeakable, right? So, but in a business sense, what do you think was the number one challenge that you faced that was just like, oh my God, I was not expecting this, being a solo business owner?
I would say in the beginning, it was doing everything, like working all the time, like having to know about marketing, having to learn QuickBooks. Like, I mean, I remember staying up till 3 a.m. doing my books, and just like all the thing, all the looking at everything from a legal standpoint to a tax standpoint to the, just balancing it all. And it was just a lot. And then I would say these last, like, after I'm established as a business owner, now it's like, it's the management. And I've just recently kind of had aha moments, because like when you grow and you have employees, it's like, it's not just you anymore, and it's different. You've got to learn how to change and adapt. And I finally, like, recently had aha moments of like, oh my God, like, and I think it's because you tune into so many things of what other people say. And like, people are like, oh, I hate babysitting. Like, owning a business is managing people, and I don't like managing people. I finally had this aha moment. I'm like, as I coach clients, I'm coaching my team. Like, I'm a great coach. I love I love coaching. And so I've shifted my frame of thinking. Like, it's just always like, it's so, again, like going back to having my coach with her master's in psychology, it's so much like shifting your brain. And when I look at it, like, owning a business is not just coaching our clients, but it's coaching our team. It's totally shifted like how I think about things.
Yeah. I always think of myself, and I kind of tell people this too, is that when people say I need to, or I have to, I ask them to change that word to get to. Like, that's a huge privilege that you have as an entrepreneur, business owner, leader, to be able to get to do these things where it's a small percentage of the world that gets to do the things that we get to do. Right.
I was downstairs this morning working out, and the Peloton class, Jess Sims said that. She's like, be happy. Like, you get to do this. You get to work out this morning.
Right. Yeah.
You don't have to be here. So yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Okay. So where do you see your business? So how many people do you have at your firm right now?
There is, after today, there'll be 8.
All right, good.
So
right.
We're growing we're growing and adding people, which I've made it a focus to really be positioned for the growth and of what's happening. Because I'm in the process of an acquisition in another state. And so where we were a year ago, where we are today, and where we will be in a year will be dramatically different. And so putting in more of the infrastructure, that not to like remove myself from the business, but that I can be away from the business, and that the team has the structure in place, like I did as a kid growing up, that everything functions and works. So yeah, lots of, I want to do more with video, more with TV, more books, more inspiring, now that I can hop on a plane again and go speak in front of audiences, more national speaking, more national exposure, and really taking Prosperwell national is the next phase.
Nice. I was gonna ask you this as part of your 9 questions, but I said, screw it, I'm not going to. So what's next up on your live it list?
Oh, well, I am headed next weekend. I am so my daughter wants to hit all 50 states by the time she's 18. So we are flying into Virginia, and then we are going to North Carolina. And it's some Outer Banks. I always forget the name of the show, but we're going to the Outer Banks, and I've never been to the Outer Banks, and we're going hang gliding in the Outer Banks. So.
Sweet.
Yeah.
What is the thing that's on your live it list that you think is probably the most extreme or like big, I guess?
That I have done or that I haven't done?
That you haven't done, that is still to be done in the future.
Well, I have a list of things that I want to do when I'm like 85 plus, because they're like the riskier things. You know how there's like those people that jump off mountains with like a parachute and like, that's it. I think they look like flying squirrels. I want to do that. Like that really freaks me out. And then the whole cage with a great white sharks, like, cause I like that, just, those are things I will always remember. I don't really have I love water, but I've never been like, I have friends and clients that are like huge scuba divers, but I've never been like excited about that. But I was like, oh gosh, like I've got to do this. I've got to do this. So I was taking all the classes, to get certified for scuba diving. And my son had to have been like about 6 at the time. He came running into my room and he was like having trouble sleeping. And I had, gotten the kids to bed, and I was, watching my video, and I didn't know that he'd come into my room. He's like, oh, Mom, are you going to do that? You could die. And then I ended up like getting sick for like the final test or whatever. And I was like, okay, this is a sign that I'm not supposed to be doing this. It was one of those moments where I'm like, okay, all this risky. That's when I came up with, I have a list of things that I'm going to do when I'm 85, it's just, I analyze risk every day when I'm investing for people. And I needed to do that same thing with my live it list.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Okay, here's a few more of our supporters. Regardless if you're a startup just figuring things out or a medium-sized organization with a full team, having a legal partner by your side is crucial. Seiler Law is fiercely loyal to their clients and are passionate about removing headaches and roadblocks that can pop up during the growth of your business. Whether you need general outside counsel, are planning a business transaction, or even need someone to help guide you through the estate planning process, the team at Seiler Law are the advocates for you. Visit seilerlaw.com to learn more. Seiler Law, where experience meets pragmatism. Listen, people, everyone needs a bank. Not just any bank, a good community bank. From personal needs like checking and savings accounts to business services like financing and M&A support, the team at Flagship Bank is there to provide you with the assistance you need so you can spend less time thinking about your finances and more time enjoying what your money can do for you. To learn more, head over to flagshipbanks.com. That's flagshipbanks with an S.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. Flagship Bank, investing in you.
If you're an entrepreneur or married to one, you likely have a shared vision on your future, but there's uncertainty on how to get there. That's where the team at eWealth Partners comes in. They see you as a dynamic duo, and as fiduciaries, they're committed to helping dynamic duos like you design a financial plan that aligns and empowers you. Navigating the entrepreneurial journey shouldn't add stress to your relationship. It should be fun and exciting. Visit ewealthpartners.com to learn how they help couples like you plan for their financial future today. eWealth Partners, holistic financial planning for entrepreneurial couples. Investment advisor services offered through AdvisorNet Wealth Management. eWealth Partners and AdvisorNet Wealth Management are not affiliated.
When you think of a typical CPA firm, you probably think of tax planning. Well, that just scratches the surface of what Boulay offers their clients. By providing smart, in-depth thinking from experts in accounting, audit, tax, and business consulting, they know what it takes to achieve financial success. Whether it's protecting your business, building your wealth, or securing your future, you can count on Boulay to go beyond addressing just financial matters and providing you with tailor-made, workable solutions. Learn about all they have to offer at BoulayGroup.com. Boulay, helping you get there. Okay, back to the show.
All right, we're going to transition into 9 questions. Are you ready to go?
Yes.
Can you confirm that you have no idea what I'm about to ask you?
I have no idea what you're going to ask. I'm excited.
Right.
I'm hoping
Good.
it's like, what's your favorite color?
Nope. Hard no on that one. That's too easy. All right. Okay. First question. What was the lowest grade you've ever received and in what class?
Oh my God. It was in college and I got a D, and it was international finance. And I was just, I was devastated, but not a single person got an A, not a single person got a B. There was 1 C and everyone else got D's and F's.
Sounds to me like there was a problem with the professor.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Otherwise it was always A's.
Yeah. All right. Good. All right. Well, then that's not on you then. All right. Just let's try and keep it to like under 30 seconds. Describe to me the perfect summer Saturday.
Oh, on my boat, my kids wake surfing behind me, just laughing, giggling, soaking up the vitamin D, and then going out to eat afterwards and watching them laugh and giggle. And as we're sitting on the water and they're feeding the fish and the ducks with their French fries from Maynard's.
I love it. Okay. That was my question is where's your go-to if you're going to take the kids out for a meal and it's Maynard's on the lake, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. What was the first CD that you ever purchased?
Oh, Milli Vanilli. And I went to their concert.
Yes.
And I went to their concert and I got money back because there was this big, huge class action lawsuit.
That's right. Because of all the lip syncing that they did. That's so great.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So, the big 152 color crayon case, right?
Yes.
Crayola crayon case. What color are you?
If Periwinkle's in there, it's Periwinkle. If it's not in there, then it's red.
All right. I like it. Who would play you in the summer blockbuster movie about your life?
Reese Witherspoon.
Oh, I like it.
It's because I was in Michigan and this woman, I was at this meeting and I like walked out of this restaurant and this woman comes rushing up to me and she's like, oh my God. She's like, I thought you were Sheryl Crow. And so I've had that. And then Reese Witherspoon, I've been told I look like. I don't really see either one of them, but.
Well, I see some Reese Witherspoon, but I actually think it's more of a personality thing. Like, I think you've got that same type of like fire that she's got. I think of Reese Witherspoon, I think of fiery. So I see the similarities there. What is one thing that you own that you wish you didn't?
Oh, I don't really have anything anymore. There was so much stuff that I had in my life that I didn't buy myself. And so last January, I moved my house and like, I hate to phrase it this way, but if it was ever associated with my ex, it like went to the donate or like it went to the trash can. And so I really don't have anything anymore.
That's good. Hey, that's a great answer because you just happened to do it, but you did it a year ago.
Yes. Yeah. If you would ask me a year and a half ago, I'd have tons of things.
Right. We'd have to have a whole podcast on that.
Yes.
All right. Describe your college experience in 1 sentence.
Oh, St. Cloud State University was the best time of my life because I lived it up every single day, and studying abroad in Germany changed my life.
Yeah. Good. That's a good long sentence, but it was.
Yes,
good.
I know. I was like, it's kind of almost a run on.
I think there's a couple commas and maybe a semicolon in there.
Semicolon.
Right. It was international business, not English.
Right.
All right. And that's what I would have done too. How do you define success?
Happiness. That you feel comfortable in your own skin and that you are happy with what you have. Nice.
Well said. Okay. Besides the lake, because we've already gone here. And so I'm going to say this as a caveat. You can't say the lake. Okay. Where is your happy place?
Oh, it's in my bedroom. And then it would be on a bike or downstairs in my workout room or my workout room at my house. And then the golf course, which is new to me. So,
yeah. How long have you been playing golf?
So I played golf prior to the kids being born. And it was funny because I'm like, I've never taken lessons before in my entire life. And I'm now taking lessons. So I had one yesterday and we got talking a little bit and I was like, yeah, like, I would golf. And the reason I got into it, because that's what you're supposed to do. Like you're a financial advisor. And I golfed and I was on a league, but I didn't really enjoy it because I was coming from it from a standpoint of like, this is what I have to do. Kind of how like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And then when I moved a year and a half ago, the whole point was to simplify my life. And I joined the Lafayette Club because I didn't have a pool anymore. So it was a place for my kids to swim. And I'm like, the kids are older. Like I can bike to the club. They're still sleeping at home. I can golf and then bike home and they're just getting up on a Sunday morning. I can make breakfast. I'm like, this is amazing. And so now it's my new, like I've got new clubs and like, I'm now just starting to take lessons and actually like learn how to golf. And I'm enjoing it. I'm having lots of fun with it.
Good for you. I'm a shitty golfer. So,
I'm not that, I didn't say I was great.
All right. We'll have to go out sometime. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. All right. I'm down with that for sure. You survived 9 questions. That was, you nailed those.
Awesome.
That was, you killed it.
My favorite color.
No way. That I never ask anybody that. Well, I did. It's periwinkle.
You did. You did.
I did, but I did it in a backwards way. Well, I want people to figure out to have multiple ways to get a hold of you. So please, how can people get a hold of you? Because you speak, you're a writer, you have your business. I want to say that once I realized where Prosperwell Financial was, so you're right on the corner of 7 and 494. You can't unsee it, right? Like I always see it and I always think about you because I live out 7. And so that's where Prosperwell Financial is, everybody. You should know that. How can people get a hold of you besides stopping by your place, which would be
prosperwell.com, or you can go to NicoleMiddendorf.com. Otherwise, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, we're everywhere. But yeah, stop in the office.
Yeah, sweet. And then, I think one of the things that is, and I know this about you, is that these speaking opportunities are something that you're really leaning into. So I think anybody that's looking for an opportunity to bring in a keynote speaker, or both locally here in the Twin Cities or at a national level, I fully endorse having Nicole do this. I think that you'd be a fantastic person to be a part of an event.
Oh, thank you. I love it.
Yeah.
I love doing it. I love helping people.
Well, doing this podcast is so fun because I get to know people at the next level. We've met, you've been out to my farm, which is great, yes. Which, you brought your daughter. That was fantastic. And I think, you embody exactly what the culture of what Coalition 9 is about. And I'm super, super happy that you agreed to be on this podcast so that I could share you with all of our listeners. It means so much to me.
Oh, I'm super happy to be part of Coalition 9. I love it. So Thank you. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Nicole. So I'm going to wrap up on behalf of Nicole Middendorf. This has been the Power of 9 podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert, and I want to thank you for the privilege of your time.